We appreciate Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, for being with us as well. Of course, Locked On Kings, ABC 10. The man does everything.
Everywhere.
You got a Super Bowl pick?
I do have a Super Bowl pick. I'm pick. So my heart is Niners Raiders, which actually seems somewhat possible this year. My brain actually is Niners Bills, but I think the Niners are making the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
Not rooting for them to make the Super Bowl, nation. I'm just saying, I think Niners are making the Super Bowl. I think they're really, really good. And I think Trey Young has more than enough to back up Trey Lance.
Trey Young definitely has more than enough to.
Trey Young's a really good
Trey Young will be a captain on this team.
Trey Lance. I actually said Trey Lyles too before, which is really bad.
My.
Trey Lance has enough behind him to where when he makes mistakes, not if, but when he makes mistakes, they're going to back him up. His defense is going to get a pick right back for him. I know it.
Niners Raiders Super Bowl. I couldn't handle it. I'm gonna tell you right now, I couldn't handle it. It'd be too much.
That's cap. That's so Kenny would be on rooftops in Sacramento shouting obscenities about anybody wearing black. You would be talking so much Kenny Caraway.
No, I actually wouldn't, because if we won, I'd be talking crazy. Yeah. But like leading up and during the game, I don't know. I'd probably black out. Like that would be too stressful. Niners Raiders would be too stressful. I honestly don't think I ever. No, I shouldn't say that. If the Niners win like 3 Super Bowls in 5 years and we're like secure, all right, then we could play the Raiders because it won't mean as much. But in this situation, needing 6 because I want 6. That'd be too much. I couldn't handle it.
Is that fear speaking, Kenny Caraway? Fear that the Raiders would actually top the Niners?
I mean, they might. It's a 1-game situation. Anything could happen. We saw last year in the NFC Championship game. The Niners beat the hell out of the Rams for decades. And they got the one that they needed to get.
Kenny's August vacation would be in February. I'm gonna take my 2 weeks now. I'm back.
Have you made a decision, KC, on the January 1st game? You going?
I don't know, man. It's looking like it's looking about 80-20 I stay. Think about 80-20 I stay.
Are they sending you? Are you going?
I wish. Probably not. I opened up the ticket prices with the intention of it being 50-50, and it became 99-1 real quick.
Before we get into your conversation with David Patrick, which I encourage everyone to go listen to, Sac State basketball might be the hottest thing in town in the coming weeks. You had that on the Locked On Kings podcast. Really good stuff. You are when I consider you a Republic reporter as good as anyone else out there. Any final words on the summer of the Republic that wrapped up last night in Orlando after Orlando obviously cheated?
Yeah, well, absolutely, they did cheat, just like 2002. And here's the thing: the refs were in on it too. And I know you guys were talking about earlier this week that the refs that it's not a conspiracy. No, somehow it was a conspiracy. I think I saw.
Yeah, this is different. This
is absolutely different. I'm all in this.
I saw Shaquille O'Neal in Orlando. I saw it. I saw Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, come down and elbow a Republic player in the.
I think I saw Earl Hepner there. So I don't know if y'all can confirm. I think I saw Earl Hepner and Shawn Michaels there.
No, like they were talking about it on the ESPN broadcast before the match, and I know maybe some Republic fans weren't too happy with what they said, but in reality, what they said was accurate. That it didn't have any effect on the match, and like it wasn't going to really have any effect on the match. It's not like someone stealing an NFL playbook. Like you're looking at training, and you're kind of getting ideas of what the Republic want to do, but everybody knows what the Republic wanted to do in that match. It was sit back, defend, try and withstand, counterattack with their speed of Malik Foster up front. And see if they could win that way. Same way they played against Kansas City. Same way they played against LA. They just happened to score early in that game. So the only takeaway from that match that I have is this. It's that Sacramento playing in a venue like that should not be, or it should be the norm. Like they're built for that stage. They're built for that stage. And I tweeted this out, and I absolutely will say it again here. The Republic beating 3 MLS squads to get to the final, that should be a normal month for Sacramento. Sacramento could go to the MLS right now and could beat 3 MLS teams in a month. Like it could be the norm for this group. And we can talk about salaries and comparisons to that and the MLS payroll versus Sacramento payroll. Regardless, like Republic did themselves proud, regardless of the result. And 3-0 is not an accurate final score of what that match was at all. Unfortunately, a costly mistake kind of started the downward spiral for the Republic at the end. But like I agree 100% with what Mark Briggs was saying. He was caught on video afterwards telling the guys to keep their heads up, that he was proud of them. Like a 3, you don't see a lot of managers taking a team aside after a 3-0 defeat when it was in some ways self-inflicted and say, I'm proud of you. But it was correct. Like the Republic absolutely showed that they belong again. They've showed that they belong time and time again. And what's crazy is like you see a lower division making it to the final against an upper division squad, and people say this may never happen again. It could absolutely happen next year for the Republic. Like if the Republic stay in the USL, there's always a threat of them going this far. And to be honest, they're not the only USL club that's a threat of going this far. There's a lot of talent in the USL, and I'm glad that was at least showcased to this point.
Yeah, the part of the speech they didn't catch, Kenny, was straighten up, fellas. We got a match on Saturday.
That's a good point, too. We still got a long way to go. We got playoffs.
We got business ahead of us, guys.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. No, I just so much enjoyed the ride that they took us on this summer. And, you know, them winning those games against the MLS opponents. And I just thought it was dope, man. It created so many more new fans here in Sacramento, and this is definitely a place where they already were. Matt, you've been there since day one. We already know what it is, but you've added so many more people that are going to be behind this team for forever. Like this is part of the landscape now. It's not just, oh, we got a cool little team or whatever. No, Sacramento Republic are part of the Sacramento sports landscape for forever.
Absolutely. And I like what Rodrigo Lopez said. He said in his pregame press conference, he answered a question about it. He said he thought that the Republic kind of reawoke the Sacramento sports scene a little bit. And some could interpret that as a shot at other organizations in Sacramento. I don't interpret it that way at all. Like Sacramento had a team that made a magical run like this, were more than capable of actually winning it. It was an underdog story, but there was never the thought going into that match that Sacramento didn't have a good chance, not just a chance. They had a good chance to win this match going into it. Like in Orlando showed them a lot of respect. The MLS, at least sides, have shown them a lot of respect throughout this entire run. So I agree. Like I think there are a lot of Sacramento Republic fans that were there at the beginning that things kind of petered out. I know a lot of fans were disappointed and their club lost a lot of momentum with the combination of MLS falling through and the pandemic. Like it's been rough. And the last couple of years, to be honest with you, the Republic have not performed up to the level that they thought they were capable of. This year, they're fourth in the Western Conference, I believe. They're right in the mix. There are some really, really, really good teams in the West. And the difference is like that 2014 inaugural championship is massive for this club, and they should definitely be proud of that forever. But in addition to that, like the USL has improved so much from that time. Like so much from 2014 to today, to where Sacramento is a really good side, and there are probably 4 or 5 clubs that should Sacramento face them either in the finals or in the playoffs, that the Sacramento Republic would still be the underdog even after this cup run. So I think that speaks to how the game continues to grow, not just in Sacramento, but grows in the United States. And on top of that too, like paying attention to the Sacramento Academy system has been a lot of fun over the years too, because there is Sacramento is a farm. Northern California is a farm for soccer talent. And we just keep hearing these names and seeing these names go further and further. So, I mean, I think Sacramento's in its own version of a renaissance. And I hope the club continues to build towards the stadium. Hope the club continues to build towards more USL trophies. And again, next year, the expectation, not the dream, the expectation should be another deep run. Maybe not a finals run, but a deep run in the US Open Cup for Sacramento.
Matt George, ABC 10 and the Locked On Kings podcast with us here on ESPN at 1320. I'm a big Mike Brown fan, and it seems like the hottest first-year coach in Sacramento is actually at Sac State. You could sense, like, from the moment David Patrick was named the head coach, there was a buzz from NBA players, from people in NBA circles, and after listening to your, 30-minute and some change conversation with him on the latest edition of Locked On Kings, it is very clear why that man is so respected.
Absolutely. Like I was already a little bit of a fan, but I didn't know too much about him other than what I had read, like on his bio on Sac State, and you see the names that have endorsed that hire. If you go onto his Sac State bio, just Google David Patrick Sac State, go to his bio page, scroll down to the bottom. There's players and names in the NBA they have quotes of the excitement they have for him being hired at Sac State, and it's amazing. Like just to see some of the names. In addition to that, I think he mentioned, and I could be misspeaking, but I think this is his second head coach job, which is pretty impressive too. So he's been in basketball for a long time, but he's not this massively well-known head coach. He's just grinded his way to this point. But I saw him during summer league training camp. He was sitting next to Mike Brown. They were having a very engaged conversation. I even told Coach Patrick on the interview or in the podcast, like, I really wish I could have mic'd up you two in that moment just to hear what the conversations were happening. And from that point, I was like, I would love to have Coach Patrick on the show, not just to talk about his program, but to talk about his connection with Mike Brown, his history with Brown, his history with Monty McNair. They worked together when they were with the Houston Rockets. And for someone to come on who is a head coach of a respected program like Sacramento State basketball, to come on and to spend 15 minutes, half of the interview talking about not even his own team. Like, he talked about his thoughts on the Sacramento Kings, his thoughts on Mike Brown, Monty McNair, what the Kings are doing, gave a lot of really good coaching philosophy on how to implement change, like early on, what you can really enforce and what you kind of have to adapt to with your rosters and things like that. Like, that was really special. And then, of course, we talked about Sac State hoops as well, but I'm a huge fan of David Patrick.
Yeah, I'm excited for Sac State basketball, man, and what he's been able to do in his short time here, the transfers that he's been able to get, and just the culture, it seems, that he's starting to create over there at Sac State. And I feel like Sacramento is a place that if Sac State is good or does create some type of buzz, like, this city will fall in love with it. This is a basketball town, and they already show love for Sac State football and what they do. But I feel like the basketball buzz might even be bigger, possibly, if David Patrick is able to get these guys on track.
Absolutely. And then, like, even with UC Davis, with Jim Les and what they're doing over there, like, they're not too far removed from when they made that tournament run. So, like, that's a really good program over there too. I think the Causeway Classic this year is going to be incredible. And then I attended, this is different from hoops, but I attended my first Sac State football game in years, covering it. And it was their opener against Utah Tech, and they absolutely blew Utah Tech out of the water, which was to be expected. But they won the Big Sky Championship last year. So, like, Sac State, Sacramento sports, man, they're doing really good things. And I mean, I'm just excited now to be in a position at ABC 10 to be able to be paid, honestly, to pay more attention to that kind of stuff. And I'm going to be a frequent at Sac State basketball games, at UC Davis basketball games, man. That Causeway Classic game, both for football and basketball this year, is going to be nuts.
Hey, man, it ain't real, though, if the Kings don't tweet Sac State basketball, though.
Yeah, that's true. Fire your shots. Fire your shots now. I mean, I was thinking about tweeting this out too, but I didn't, because I didn't want to get involved. Like, I was like, who are you arguing with? Like, are you yelling at yourself in the mirror? Like, y'all the same people. You're taking shots at the Kings. You're just taking shots at the team you love too. Like, Sac Republic fans are Sacramento Kings fans. Not all of them, but most of them. You're all the same people.
Never thought about the Kings last night. That's just the craziest part. Never, not once watching that game did I think about the Kings.
The Kings haven't tweeted about the Republic. Man, they must hate Sacramento. That's really what this boils down to. Vivek hates Sacramento. That's what it is. Vivek sees a winner and he can't handle it. That was definitely the wildest part of last night. By far, the wildest part of last night is that ridiculousness that happened on Twitter. And Matt, you point out how great it is to be at ABC 10. Most people don't know this. Matt started like the first 10 years of his career not getting paid. So the fact that he's now getting paid through ABC 10 is a big plus to cover all of these sports. And on top of that, Matt, we've got kickoff like hours away from the NFL season. We've got more Republic soccer. Like, don't forget that at Hart Health Park on Saturday. Dude, we're 2 weeks and a couple of days away from the start of Kings training camp.
I don't know whether to be ashamed or disappointed that one of the A's or Giants aren't good, or relieved that one of them aren't good, so I can at least focus on other areas and not pay as much attention to baseball. Like if the Giants were making the run that they did last year during this season right now, my head would be exploding, but that's kind of part of the job. Plus the high school football scene too is popping off, and being able to pay attention to a lot of high school football this year has been nuts. Although like I'm seeing this story that happened. I don't know if you guys saw, like the Del Oro high school football player, like got into like a comatose state or something like that. I read, I think Joe Davidson was tweeting out about it, like after practicing in 115 degrees. And look, I was at West Point High School. I think that's what it's called. It's a new high school, relatively new, in Roseville, covering a practice because they're going to be our game of the week on ABC 10, taking on Tokay. They're both undefeated. And I was out there on turf. Their stadium has no shade whatsoever. And it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I will say the coaches did a very good job of enforcing as much mandatory water breaks as they could. But I was in a dress shirt and pants, and within minutes I was soaked, and I had to leave earlier than I intended to because my camera got overheated and would not turn on. So it was nuts. It was
that was terrible.
That's just not okay. You can't like, I don't care how many water breaks you're enforcing. You could shout out to my Rockland Thunder, by the way, who did practice the last 2 days at 6 o'clock in the morning. Move your practices.
Yeah.
These kids out here in 113 degree heat. Oh, go get some water. No, move your freaking practice, coach. What are you doing?
Yep.
I will say though, I'm a little concerned because Friday night, most teams are pushing kickoffs back to like 8 o'clock. And even then, Friday night, 8 o'clock is still going to be 90 degrees. At least the sun's down, and maybe there's a little bit of that Delta breeze, but boy, like they're warriors out there, man, working in that heat. So I don't know if they how easy it is to do this, and it shouldn't really be that much of an issue. But I mean, for this particular week, they should move these games to Saturday. I mean, there's a drastic difference between the weather predicted on Friday and Saturday. Just move the games to Saturday. And there's been a lot of games being moved to Thursday, too, because of the referee shortage, which I think is actually a plus. Like, I've been able to get to more games now, going to really good matchups on Thursday, really good matchups on Friday. I think Rockland played last Thursday. We were able to get out to that. Or no, a couple Thursdays ago.
Yeah, Rockland played last. Their game got moved because of the referee shortage and because of heat. It got they played, I think, at 10 a.m. Saturday morning.
That's what it was. Yeah, and then the week before, I think they played on a Thursday. There was a Wood Creek Whitney game that was played on a Thursday, and I mean, I think it's a bummer maybe for some of the students who look forward to the Friday night and not having to worry about class the next day. But for someone like me,
time. Yeah,
for the football.
Yeah, y'all got time. Like, don't worry about it. Let's worry about your brothers out there in uniform before we get too upset about missing the game.
Real quick, I just want to say, because Matt was talking about everything that was going on. Damien was talking about everything that's going on here. You know, busy time for Matt. I did see, and this is no shade. I'm just reporting the facts. This is all I'm doing. I did see the A's were eliminated from playoff contention yesterday.
We did it.
First team eliminated.
And the graphic they put up was of Stomper the elephant. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. A's are eliminated. Here's their mascot that no one knows.
That's tremendous. That is weird.
I think Stomper was giving the thumbs up too. Like, hey, we suck. Come to Oakland. We're trying to go to Vegas.
Shout out to the Nationals, because I think they got eliminated too. So
wow,
not alone.
Giants aren't far behind. Don't worry.
It's the A's and the Nationals. They've been eliminated. Oh boy, the Giants really have. Oh, yikes! All right.
Yeah, it's a done deal out here, man.
All right. Hey, football starts tonight, man. Football starts tonight, and basketball it's right around the corner. Are you a Euro Cup FIBA international play guy? Are you locked into that stuff?
I'm no Brendan Nunez. I'm doing my best. I'm actually learning a lot through what Brendan is providing, truth be told. I'm watching highlights and I look up numbers like when I wake up, or if I know a game is on, I'll pay attention a little bit. But to be honest with you, no. With everything else going on, like if I have a minute to not pay attention to sports, I'm there. I'm in.
I'm not big. I just tune it. Did Sabonis get hurt last night? No. Cool. Let's keep it moving. All I care about is everybody healthy? Yep. All right. Cool. Let's keep it moving. By the way, I feel like we should give Matt his due. We should follow up on this. Matt joined us in some rather unique attire last week. in case he was going to get style tips from Chime Moneki. And we put that clip out there into the Twitter world. And I was a bit surprised by the response we got.
Yeah, man, it was. I told you it was fresh. I told you it was.
I just want to be clear. He had a tie tied around his head.
And that's next thing you know, Matt George is gonna have the paper towel wrapped around his head too. That's how we do it.
Chime Moneki said he's going to have to take style tips from Matt George. That's where we are right now.
It's a good thing nobody lies on social media and everybody's straightforward and truthful. Because I take that for every bit of what it's worth.
As straight and truthful as Doug Gottlieb.
Ooh, well, yikes.
What do you? I like. Do you think Chime is going to make the roster?
Yes, I do.
I don't want to take this happy moment and ruin it, but like, there's going to be some. There's going to be some tough calls, towards the end of training camp. These are guys that we like, all of these guys, but they're probably some guys that they're just not going to make it.
Yeah, from what I understand from conversations that I've had, and we've seen pictures of like Chima's been there working out. We've seen Davion, which is nothing new. Davion basically lives in the gym. You've seen Kayvon. He's been out working. De'Aaron's been in there as well. Like, there's a lot of guys out there that are working. And from conversations that I've had, I've been told that everybody's been really impressed with Chima to this point, like really happy with how he's been playing. Now, of course, training camp is a different beast when that comes. But I think Chima absolutely does have a really good chance to make the roster. I've also been told that Matthew Dellavedova hasn't looked as good as maybe they were hoping. But that could just be him working off the rust here early in summer. Again, these are all pre training camp things, and Dellavedova's trying to get himself back into like that NBA style. So that'd be something to pay attention to. Even though I mean, even before hearing that information, though, I thought that was going to be Quinn Cook's spot. If they do bring a third point guard in, I think it's Quinn Cook's spot to lose at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Delly, he's got an uphill battle. You know what I mean? He's been out of the game, 2 years, 3 years? Out of the NBA.
Might have an over the hill battle.
Right? I mean, I know, and I'm not even a professional athlete. Like, it's at some point, it's like, it's just, I can't get up and down the court the way I used to. I'm trying, I'm working on it, but it's not the same way. So, I don't have any issue with Delly. If he was able to put it together to be on the team, cool. But it just seems like a tough spot for him.
I see some people in the chatty house too asking about Okpala. I haven't heard much about Okpala to this point, to be honest with you. Although, from what I understand, at least what I've been told, if there was one that was a little more of like a developmental project than the other, Okpala was more of a developmental project than Moneki, from as far as I understand. But I'm not saying one is leagues ahead or behind of the other. Both are going to be fighting to really develop into hopefully NBA rotational players. But as far as right now, if one were more likely over the other, as far as I understand, Moneki is more likely than Okpala, but that could change in an instant.
But that kind of feels like the case, though. Like you referenced it with Delly and Quinn Cook. Like it felt like when they started bringing a handful of more guys in, it became like, okay, there's like legitimate. We talk about roster battles, like there's legit. I would say we talk about position battles. There's legit roster battles here, as to where some of these guys just aren't going to make the cut. And I think when Quinn Cook came in, Matthew Dellavedova, these different guys in, it's like, okay, now you start cutting this roster down a little bit. One of those guys will make it, and we thought the same thing with. I think when Kent Bazemore came in, it's probably like, okay, Okpala or Chime Moneki. Like, you're not going to have all of these guys back. Like that's what we were talking about a minute ago. Some of these guys we've spent time talking about, they're just not going to make the roster.
I do know that Mike Brown, I mean, he's a fan of both Moneki and Okpala from the time with the Nigerian team, but I think I remember reading, and I have to look it back up, but when the Kings initially signed Okpala or brought him in, I tracked down Brown saying something about he thinks he could be develop into like a defensive player of the year type candidate. So I know there's a love for KZ's ability on the defensive end of the floor, which may be how he works his way in. If he just comes into training camp and puts his head down and shows that he can be at times like, hey, we need to put you in at the end of the second quarter here, one final possession to guard this guy and get a stop. Like, maybe that's a role that he can carve out for himself and then develop the offensive game alongside it. But I don't know. Like, it's just one of many storylines in training camp that I'm very eager to pay attention to.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out, because that's going to be a test for my theory that you can find. People are always stressed out about, getting a 3, getting a small forward, all this other stuff. And I just feel like you can find these type of guys all over the place. Akpala being that type of guy. Like you can find him, you know what I mean? And find a guy that's 6'6", 6'7", that can just be a defensive guy on the wing, because that's what you're looking for. Obviously, you're hoping for a 3-and-D type guy, but now those guys are a little harder to find. But if you need somebody to spell your starting small forward and give solid minutes and work hard, I feel like you can find those guys rather easily. But we'll see. I mean, these are the type of guys I'm talking about, and we'll see if they're able to stick in the league or not.
One of the questions that I've been thinking about, and I'll throw it out to you guys too, is looking at all the players who are returning this season, who are part of the roster by the end of last season. Are any of them at risk of not making it? Like, and I think about the very end of the roster. I think about guys like Alex Len, about maybe, I don't know if it's fair to say Chimezie Metu's towards the end, but Chimezie Metu. And I don't know if any of those guys are at risk of losing their spot unless they just show up and are completely out of shape, which is not going to happen because both of them are playing in FIBA, as far as I understand. So I don't think, like, it's where you have to think about how many spots are available too. Like, even if the Kings do have a lot of new names and new faces and are trying to be a new team, there are a lot of returners from last season that are, I think, set or almost guaranteed to make the roster.
Yeah, Chimezie's an interesting one to discuss. I think Alex Len is too, though. I think there's probably a place for Alex Len. I've always been I'll keep the same energy. I'd really like to see Keita be on the main roster.
Yeah.
Kenny's always, we're at the point in the offseason we're repeating stuff. Like, I understand that, but Kenny makes the point of Keita, get the work in Stockton, because that's what you need most is the work. Get the work up here, but be here. Like be here, be on the roster. I'd like to see him get that Alex Len spot. It is a minimal spot, and I understand that. And I understand the argument for keeping Alex Len when you could do something else with Neemias Queta, but that's the one I find most interesting.
So you like the idea of converting his two-way into a full contract, getting Len's spot, and then maybe getting whoever between Meneke and Akpala who doesn't make it, giving them that two-way spot potentially. Like, that's maybe an option.
Yeah, I just want to see. Neemias Queta. Like, if you have moments, and we know they'll be there for good or for bad, but sometimes more often for bad, that the game is a certain direction late. Let's rock with Neemias Queta, or we need a bigger body, we need some energy, we need something. You kind of know what Alex Len is. You know what he can do, and if Mike Brown needs that, cool, run with it. I want to see Neemias Queta though.
This sounds weird too, and I'm almost excited about the lack of projects. And what I mean by that is, like, Meneke, Akpala, Queta, Keon Ellis, like, these guys are developmental projects for the team that they believe could have a possibility of being something in the future. But those guys aren't taking spots 14, 13, and 12. Like, it's going to be 14 and 15 or 15 and two-way spots. Like, that to me is exciting versus years past, because 1 through 5 is pretty much set, I think. Definitely 1 through 7, I think, is definitely set. And then 8 and 9 are guys that are going to be playing consistently. Those 2 spots are up to grabs. Even 10 could make a case for it. And then 11 and 12 are also guys that are like, okay, we're ready to go when you need us, and we can come in and keep the ball rolling too. Like, the depth is something that's really exciting about this team this year. And I know I've said that in years past and been proved absolutely a fool. So we'll have to wait and see when they actually start playing games. But the fact that there's not 2 second-round picks that are not two-way contracts but are holding spots 14 and 15, that's exciting to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good question, though, about who's on the roster that might be in danger of not making it. And we talk about Freeport. I like Freeport. But he's got to show something in this training camp. He's got to show something in this preseason. And he's got to show that he's worked on his game, and he's added different dimensions to his game, and he understands the game on a different level. And maybe with Mike Brown, there's somebody that he's familiar with. There's a level of comfort there that he's able to do things that we didn't see him do much last year. But that's one guy that I'm looking at. I'll be honest with you. I may be biased. I'm rooting for him because I like him. I want it to happen. But if I'm being transparent, I mean, I think he's one of the guys you got to look at and see if, man, can we use that roster spot? Because now you've got Keegan Murray there, and I think Trey Lyles is better than Chimezie Metu right now for what they're trying to do. So he's gonna have to step his game up in training camp.
I think floor spacing is a massive thing for him shooting, and he's a 30% 3-point shooter for his career, shot 30% from 3-point range last season. The question is though, like, what if you could pencil in a 3-point percentage, like you could say this is the percentage that he is going to have this season, like what is the lowest you could pencil in to say, yeah, he absolutely gets a roster spot? Is it like 34, 35%? Yeah.
I'd say my first thought was 35.
Yeah.
My first thought.
That's what I was thinking too. Because I think if Metu could develop more consistent of a 3-point shot, because he hits them every once in a while, but also missed a fair few. And I like the volume at which he was taking them, because a lot of them he was shooting good shots.
That's what I was about to ask you. Does he need to cut back on the number of shots that he takes from back there?
Yes.
Yes, but also I thought a lot of the shots that he got were in rhythm. I think a lot of the shots that he got were going to be shots that he's going to get, and a lot of players are going to get just for the amount of attention that Sabonis and Fox are going to draw. So corner threes, if Chimezie can make that a specialty of his, like that's valuable for Sacramento.
Yeah, if they fall, like,
yeah,
I don't know if he's the caliber. You framed it perfectly, Matt. If he can make that, if that becomes a weapon, if that becomes something that the Kings can utilize, man, absolutely. I just think there were times we'd come in, it's like, yo, I know you do the same thing on Locked On. Like, I'm sorry, Freeport was 1 of 8 from 3. Green light to shoot 8 3-pointers. I don't care what kind of rhythm he was in. Pass the ball, Chimezie.
That was a consistent issue throughout this roster, though. Like, there were a lot of guys that would just chuck up threes. Like when Justin Holiday came to town, he did it. Dante DiVincenzo, to some extent, he did it. We all know Buddy Hield did it while he was here, and he was straight enabled to by Luke Walton before Luke was dismissed. Like, I think that was more of a roster-wide like enablement problem than it was. And
it was an organizational issue.
Chimezie's at the end of the season go, well, hell, everybody's doing it. I'm gonna do it too. I'm gonna get my numbers up to 32%. Nope.
Yeah, that's one, and I like what you talked about as well, Damian, with Alex Lynn, because I don't know if they were able to keep some of those guys at the 3 and the 4 spot. Do you think that's enough to kind of put to rest the concern of not having enough wing defenders? If they were able to keep some of those guys, the Bazemores, the Okpalas, is that enough for you, Matt?
I don't know. The way I would answer it is this: like, I think Kent Bazemore is number 10 right now, and I mean he's number 10 because if it's a depth chart and I'm looking at my backup 3 behind Harrison Barnes, it's at this point Kent Bazemore. But I also don't think the Kings are running a 10-man rotation. Like, I think it's some combination of, I mean, it's going to be Fox, Herter / Monk, and whatever doesn't start will be 6th or 7th man off the bench. It's Barnes, it's hopefully Keegan Murray or Trey Lyles. So again, whoever doesn't play will come off the bench, and it's Domantas Sabonis. Then you add Davion Mitchell and you add Rashawn Holmes to that. There's your 9. Like those 9 are set. I don't know how anybody creeps into those 9. 10, I think, is Kent Bazemore at this point, and maybe that's a spot that is up for grabs for a Chimezie Metu. It's up for grabs for a and maybe Trey Lyles is not that good, and maybe he gets that spot taken from him, although I think Trey Lyles is going to be a consistent part of the rotation nightly. Maybe that's a spot that KZ Okpala or Chima Maneke can get into. I think Keon Ellis should also look at this opportunity and go, this team needs someone like me. If I could consistently become an NBA scoring threat defensively, the Kings are in need of Keon Ellis. That's why I think he and his agent decided to sign with the Kings after the draft, because he knows I got opportunity here. So I don't think it's fair to say a two-way player is, by the end of the season in his first rookie season, going to be in a part of the rotation. But I don't think it's out of left field for Keon Ellis to become the next Damian Jones or the next Chimezie Metu and work his way to a full-time spot. to where now maybe next offseason, next training camp, we're like, okay, maybe Keon Ellis can be that wing depth that Sacramento always needs.
Right.
Yeah, he'll be a guy. I'll be anxious to watch him in Stockton and watch how his development goes. And I think you're right about Kent Bazemore, though, because Kevin Huerter, I think, is going to. You talk about the depth charts. Kevin Huerter, whether he's the starting 2 or not, he's probably the backup 3. Yeah. And then there's Kent Bazemore after that. Yeah. And then you're kind of juggling things around and kind of figuring out. Hopefully, my biggest hope, and I know we've echoed this, no going into game 1. Yes. Have a training camp and a preseason good enough to where you just said pretty definitively, I feel like this 9 is impenetrable. Mm-hmm. I absolutely need Mike Brown to believe that too when the season starts. Like, y'all over here at 11 and 12 and 13, y'all got work to do. We've got work. This is my rotation. This is how I see this. And I just 5th game of the season here with the 4th starting lineup. Like, oh man, nah, let's not do that.
No, absolutely not. I agree with that completely too. And I will say this, like, I'm very interested to see also what Keegan Murray looks like at the 3, because I think he's going to get opportunity at that spot, depending upon what the Kings try to do with Trey Lyles and where he fits into things too. Because we know Harrison can move down to the 4 if he needs to. I don't think Keegan is a 3, but I want to see what it looks like. And defensively, if he's getting torched, then we know. I'm not worried about offense. Defense is what I'm worried about, and that's what Mike Brown's focus is. So we'll know pretty quickly if Keegan can play the 3 defensively or not in Mike Brown's system.
We know you're interested in Keegan Murray, Matthew. Stop
it. Hey, his NBA 2K rating is shambles. It's going to be in the 80s by the end of the season.
It's going to be wild when it gets to 99 in 2 years.
Absolutely.
Matt George, ABC 10, Locked on Kings. Thanks so much for being with us as always. That is